any amount of time sewing doesn't take you very long before you realize there's a big difference in what the size pattern envelope tells you to make and then how you want it to fit, because it's often so very wrong in size. And if you're looking for what is the difference? What's the key to choosing the right size in a sewing pattern? It is understanding the difference between body measurements and finished garment measurements, and using the finished garment measurements as your guide to pick your size. And we are going in detail how to do that and what it all is in this video. Sewing friends, we are at the end of a wonderful Start to Sew this year series, and this is the finale where we are really talking about sewing pattern sizes, because my gosh, isn't it it can be so hard, right? If you're actually just joining us for the first time, welcome. My name's Evelyn Wood and I'm the creator of VintageSewingSchool.com, and here we talk all about garment sewing. And last week we talked about choosing a sewing pattern size and why sewing patterns don't usually fit you the way that you expect or at all. And it kind of goes on the skill level that you go through in why that happens. Like when you very first start, why that happens. When you learn that bit, why they still don't seem to fit, then that little part. And then we get to the end. And at the end of that video, if you haven't already, go watch that video because it's very, very useful. We're kind of leaning off that to start this video, because at the end of that video, we came to the conclusion that what we need to be looking when we're looking for sewing pattern sizes and choosing the right size for us is, rather than going off body measurements on what it tells us on the little thing here, is to go by finished garment measurements. And we're going to talk all about that and what all that is in this video. Don't worry if you don't know what that is yet. First of all, let's cover off a few points so we're all on the same page and we know exactly what we're talking about. So let's talk about what all these things are. So body measurements are what you see on the pattern, and they're usually on either the little flap here like this, or they are written on the top. They're written on the very top of the envelope here, so you'll see them up around here, and it might even probably say body measurements, and it lists all the sizes, bust, waist, hip, etc. And this is how you choose then what size pattern to pick off. So your body measurements is then, that's where you measure your body. You take that measurement and, you're supposed to go and cut out whatever size it tells you on the envelope, but we're not doing that anymore. So finished garment measurements, as opposed to what this is body measurements. The finished garment measurement is the size of the garment when it is made up. For example, my top here is a lot bigger than my actual body measurements, right? Yeah, so my body measures around less. I've got extra here. The difference between finished garment measurements and body measurements is called ease. And now there are two different types of ease in garments. So we have design ease and like for design, or and fitting ease or wearing ease. And so let me explain those two different types. Design ease is where the garment just needs that extra ease, that extra room. And yes, it can be negative ease. So the garment could be smaller, for instance, in the case of like swimwear, where it actually stretches out to your body. That is a thing. But why we need ease for design is, for example, imagine a big cowl neck, right? Or a big baggy jumper. That's part of the design. It's meant to be big, loose, drapey, etc. And it's meant to be much bigger than your body. That's part of the design of the garment, right? And then the wearing ease or fitting ease is something necessary in a garment, because if this woven top was exactly my body measurements, I would not be able to move, and I certainly wouldn't be able to put it on my body. So there's two different types there, and no, there is no magic number as to what you need for what. It's a personal choice and opinion, and that is the fun of getting to sew your own clothes, because you are going to decide that. Don't worry, I'm going to tell you all about more of this in as we go through everything here. So I've made other videos on ease before, and I'm going to link them down below as well, so you can definitely go and watch those, because hearing the same thing in different ways often really starts cementing these things. And this is a really kind of tricky topic to sometimes wrap your brain around in how it works. So do watch multiple videos on these types of topics to really cement it in for you. All right, so far we know the difference, what body measurements are, what finished garment measurements are. We know what ease is and the different types of ease and why it is there and necessary on garments. So we know why the garment ends up being bigger than what we sew it is though. Why is it always seemingly still not fitting us though, right? This is where whatever is written on the envelope here, when they say this is your body measurements and this is what size to cut, whatever pattern company it's from, it doesn't matter. Basically, it's them deciding, they're being the designer and telling you if your body measurements are, say, let's say 36 inches, your bust, then cut this size because we have decided that this garment should fit this big on you. Basically, that's what they're saying, is like they're making the recommendation of how big or small the garment should fit you, like how tight fitting or how loose fitting. They're deciding for you by giving you that recommendation, which is, fine, except, don't you? They always end up being like a whole size or 2 sizes even too big sometimes. Why that is, there's many reasons. I mean, my hypothesis is, one, you can always make a garment a little bit smaller, but if it's too small, there's nothing you can do with it. So it is a bit of a saver, especially if you're learning and you're not very precise with things. It's easy to accidentally sew more or less and not get it right, so you need that bit of extra room. And 2, again, just like fitting, etc. If it's too small, there's nothing you can do about it, and it's really disappointing. If it's a bit big, at least you can salvage it and still actually put it on your body, for example, so it's less disheartening than being too small. So I kind of understand why they do put a little extra, but we all agree it's a bit too much. So how do we start deciding on how do we want it to fit, right? This is the magic key. This is what you now get to decide as you're making your own clothes, your me-made clothes. Now you're designer of your wardrobe. You get to decide on how big you would like things to fit. And it's not as complicated as it sounds. What we want to be doing, the whole key here is we want to be deciding the size pattern to cut for ourselves, or even blending the sizes. Decide it on the finished garment measurements. So I want to know, for example, how big, if I was making up this blouse, how big the finished garment measurement would be from size, I don't know, let's just say size 12, how big like the finished garment measurements would be, because then I can measure that and think, you know what, that's too much ease. I want this particular garment to be more. So I'll get the finished garment measurements of the size 10, and then decide, is that a better fit? Is that more the ease amount that I want in my garment, right? I think you're seeing where we're going here. You get to decide how big or small, tight fitting, loose fitting, that you might want it to be based on the finished garment measurements. And don't worry, I know you're already thinking, so where do I find this magical information? How do I get it? Don't fear. Let's go into that now on how we can actually find this out, because it's often very hidden, very convoluted, and sometimes you can't find it on pattern envelopes at all. But don't worry, you can get this anytime yourself. Okay. There's a few levels that we go into, just like anything in sewing. It's all building your skill level. So the first level we go to in trying to find the finished garment measurements is seeing if the pattern company was nice enough to list them for us. So on the back of the envelope is always the first place to start looking. And well, let's start with maybe this one here from here. We've got finished garment measurements, and it says the lower edge. Okay, then we've got lengths, finished back from the base of your neck. Okay, from the back, from the base of your neck. Why do I want to know that? Finished side length from waist for this skirt, side length from the waist. Why on earth do I want to know the finished length? I can pretty much lay the pattern up against me and see how long it is, right? Unfortunately, this is most common finished garment measurements that you will find is like a back length or something like that, which is really, I mean, it has its use and everything, but this is utterly useless in what we're looking for sizing. So unfortunately, that's not what we're looking for. We want bust, waist, hip. We want circumferences around the pattern. And so some other companies though, I think are cluing on, and definitely indie patterns are getting even really good at this, because they know this is the key to finding the right size, is if you look we have finished garment measurements, and we've got bust and hip, and it even says it's printed on the pattern, which is quite unusual. So we've got hips, length, again, which the lengths are not what we're looking for, hip. But as this is a skirt pattern, a hip measurement is probably really all we need. Or well, the waist is really good, but at least it's a start, right? We've got one measurement to go off to get us a better idea of how big this finished product will be. Failing any information on the back envelope, your next place to go looking is actually on the tissue paper itself. And so if you unwrap your tissue patterns, you might actually find this information printed on one of the pieces. Usually start with the center front bodice section, because they're usually like the pattern number 1, right? Like that's where you start from, front bodice, but it could be anywhere, but that's where I would generally start looking. And if you're lucky, you might find something printed on here, like right here. This is on just a random piece. This is along sort of a bust section here, and it's got these little prints here. 39 and a half, a size 14, 41 and a half for a size 16. Now, given that I know that this is along the bust line, because I look down further and the waist is down here, and I know this is on the jacket piece, then it gives me an indication that possibly this is finished garment measurements. Usually it's going to say finished garment measurements, like on this one. So this one is even nicer to us, and it's listing a lot of things. It is even saying we've got finished garment measurements, hip, and then you might find the bust line might be at the actual bust line on the pattern, right? So it might be along the bust, might be along the waist, the hip. Even one of these is useful. And it even tells us total ease above body measurement is 3 inches or 5 centimeters. Wow, I mean, isn't this great? It even tells us how much ease is in the pattern at the hip there. I mean, this kind of information we can really start to use to decide the right size for us. Given that I now know let's just say a size 10 here is going to be 36 and a half inches finished, right? So I can measure my hip and decide how much ease do I want. Is 3 inches too much or not enough? But I can just measure my body measurements, and then let's just say my body measurements are 34 inches a hip. It's definitely not. But let's just say it is. And then size 10, the finished garment measurements are 36 and a half inches. So then that's 2.5 inches of ease, right? And I'm thinking, this is a pretty slimline skirt. Oh, that's too much. I want to go down a size. So then I can look at the next one, and the size 6 it says the finished garment measurements are 34 and a half. And then I can think, is only 1/2 inch of ease enough? That is a whole other topic, of course, in knowing how much eases you like, because generally that could still be more or less than you like. And the key is, looking at clothes you own and measuring, and it does just come with experience as well. I mean, there are ways to know, and I go into great detail in Vintage Sewing School about how to use this information better to really assess the ease and the different parts of the body and between the waist and the hips, and actually go to the next level, because if your pattern doesn't tell you this, it's then how do we measure these patterns pieces ourselves, each individual pattern piece, how do we measure them to add up the bust, add up the waist, to know, regardless what pattern it is, we can know the bust, the waist, and the hip, and any other measurement we want, exactly what it will be finished, so then we can make all those preliminary alterations. This is what I do in Vintage Sewing School, and if you're ready to go to that next level to really start deciding for yourself and working this out, I would absolutely love to help you. That's vintagesewingschool.com is where we can find all of that information, and I can walk you through step by step and really give you that information to be able to not even bother wasting your time trying to find it on the pattern piece. If you can, then you can just go and find it on any pattern, which is, I know, probably like me, what you're after. Okay, so do know that choosing your size is a process, and learning about ease and how much you like on different garments and different styles is a process, and you do get better and better as you go along at making garments, I promise. And some resources to help you decide along the way, and looking at the garments you already own and fit is a really big useful tool. Because once you start using finished garment measurements to start choosing your size or your patterns, even if it's just a standard stock size, you're getting so much closer to a garment that really fits you. And it is, as I said, a process. You get better and better, and you learn how to fit more and more and more, and it's always building on these skills as we go along. So I'd love to know down below in the comments, is this your first time hearing about this thing about finished garment measurements, or how to find it? Or, I would love to hear what was your biggest takeaway from this video. Do leave me comments below, because I love reading them and getting all the video ideas and knowing where you are. And if you have any more tips on where to find these finished garment measurements, or using them for other sewists here watching, leave your comments down below too. And remember to read all the comments, because there'll be some really great sewing tips for you down there too. We are a community, all helping each other just get better at sewing our clothes here. That is what we do. So leave your comment, and do check the description box down below, because there's lots of other videos I've already made that will really help you understand this even more and go further and further into really learning this skill. Until next time, my sewing friends, happy sewing. Bye.